Hey everybody, we've been having a run of warm weather here in northern Michigan and I'm taking full advantage of it. And so I want to continue some of my fall cleanup and planting projects. So I'm really pleased with how this bed had turned out. I had done the cardboard and the compost on top of it. I'd like to get some mulch on here and I'd like to continue up the rest of the row, but that mulch or the compost, that's kind of expensive. And so a lot of you had mentioned you don't necessarily have to do all that compost. You can use cardboard or newspaper and then you can just put your mulch on top of it. So I want to try it and I think it's going to be a good kind of way to compare the two sides as well, see if there's any noticeable difference. And I do have some Veronica planted kind of farther up the hill as well. But before I get to that, I think I'm going to do some cleanup because there's some peony up here that I want to get those taken out. So let me jump over there and get those down. There are two plants that I cut back to the ground every single fall, and that's the peony and the hosta. And I do that because those are two plants that the leaves tend to harbor potentially some disease or some insects that can cause problems in the future. So those are two plants that I cut them down and then I remove any of the debris and I make sure and toss it. I don't even put it on the compost because I want to prevent any kind of disease from spreading. So it's just the peony and the hosta that I worry about. Other plants, sometimes I cut them down in the fall, sometimes I cut them down in the spring, but these are the two that I always do. And for the peony, I actually find it easiest to just use the hedge cutter, go through, cut them down, collect up the waste, and then get rid of that. And up here, I have room for two more peony over here where I had planted some peppers this summer. And so I'm gonna put two coral charm peony in there because they are two varieties that we don't have in this row and I think they're really interesting. They're a little bit slightly more unusual than some of the regular ones that are always out there. So I'm gonna just cut these back, clean them up, and get those planted. So here are my peony, and one thing you have to note about peony is that it's important that you plant them really high. So if we kind of pull back some of this soil, we're going to start seeing the root system, and it has eyes. So let me actually I'll pull up a little bit more here. So when we look inside this pot, you can see the eyes of these peonies. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can see. I'm sure there's even more in there. We want to make sure that those eyes are right at the surface level. We don't want to sink our peony too low because if you do that, you're going to end up with a plant that has beautiful leaves, but it won't flower. So that's a really important point with peony. And I have to also note that my soil is super dry in here, so I'm going to have to make sure and get a lot of water around these plants right away because I don't want them completely drying out. So I gotta refill my hole a little bit. So I got this row all done and I'm pretty happy with the results. We'll see how everything looks in the spring. But up here at the top, I didn't use any newspaper or cardboard underneath. There weren't a lot of weeds, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try to get away with it. Now you can see where some of the peony were. And then over here, these are flags where the newly planted peony are. So I'm going to kind of relieve those of some of this mulch because I'm not sure they're okay with being completely covered. A little bit on top of them won't matter, but I want to make sure that any of my shrubs too, I don't like to have a lot of mulch kind of going up and doing kind of a mulch volcano on them or anything like that. So you can see up to there was no paper. Then I added paper over here in this section. And then when we get over here, I didn't put any mulch down here. I just don't have the energy right now to put mulch down, but this area all has cardboard underneath the compost. And the other thing I want to get done today is I got this amsonia. It's called the string theory amsonia, and its placement is a little odd next to that really tiny hydrangea, the early evolution. That's a little lime punch. I think it would look better if I moved it more up here. I've got 3 quick fire fabs in a row right there, and I think I'm going to put it between there, and then I have a second string theory amsonia that I'll put in as well. So I think that's a good option there. So I'm going to get those planted and transplanted right now. So I got both amsonia in, one right there, one right here. And I don't know, at some point I might find that they get too big for this space with these hydrangeas, but for right now I think they're going to be beautiful in the springtime because they're beautiful blue flowers on them. And my camera did cut out when I was planting them, so I didn't get to show you that part, but that's all I did was pull back the compost that I have here, cut a hole in the cardboard, dug my hole, planted it, and then recovered it. That's all I did. And so sorry you missed that part of it, but I don't think you really missed too much. The last thing I want to do is go over to the pump house and cut back some hostas that I have over there. I'm doing this stuff all in the evenings after I'm done with all my other stuff. So my time is always limited. So I figure I can get those hostas cut before dark and then call it a night. You can always tell when hosta are done for the season because they quickly start turning really slimy. And when it comes time to trim them, I just trim them right down to the ground. They're super hardy, so they're a plant that you don't have to worry too much about as far as cold. Just during the season when they've got their leaves, the deer and the slugs absolutely love them. So that's their big downfall. This one's gotten quite big. It's probably ready for some dividing, but I don't have the energy to get that done right now, so it's going to wait another year. And again, these are leaves that I'm going to dispose of because they can harbor like the slug eggs and different kind of bugs and disease and things like that. Other plants are less of a problem, but these in particular can be a little bad for that. So let me get these done. And there's a couple other plants here that I'm just going to cut back while I'm here.